Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are friends of Figma, and we're so excited that you're here today. So let's get started. Before we go any further, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm Jonathan. I am one of the co-leads here at Friends of Figma Miami. We've been doing meetups for the past 5 years, and it's been amazing to see how our community has grown, has evolved, and now in the age of AI, we've seen even more interest in these types of workshops and more hands-on type of engagements. So we're super excited that you're here. I am a manager. I manage a team at DocuSign, and I would love to pass it on to Beto or Jackie so they can introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We're so excited you showed up today and you're ready to learn something new. I am Jackie. I'm originally from Brazil, and I am a UX manager over at Miami Waterkeeper. And again, thank you, and I hope you enjoy tonight. Beto?
Hey, thank you everyone. So one correction, we have this is year 6 of Friends of Figma. I know because I founded it, so it started with me. So I started on 2020, the middle of the pandemic, virtual, no people. But then we started growing up. Maybe in year 3 we started going back in person, so that was great to have. And here we are, year 6. So thank you for joining. Name is Beto Navarro. I'm a senior product designer at Amazon. So this is a safe space for everyone, whatever is your background. How many designers we have today here? How many non-designers? What background? Software? You? What? Okay, and somewhere over here? Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So this is for everyone, right? I think the big purpose of us is for you to join and learn something new with us. So regardless if it's you're using Figma or not, we really don't care about that. It's just learning something together in a safe space. You can ask questions, and we will be more than happy to help you out. So having said that, let's give a shout to the volunteers today. So Sharon is in the front desk. So give a round of applause to her. It's Pedro. Where is Pedro? Over there in the back. And Jonathan right over here. So if you have been to our previous events, you see that something's different in how we're marketing and showing ourselves. Is because this week we launch a new branding for Friends of Figma globally. And Sharon was actually the person that helped us rebrand with the Miami theme. So a big shout out to Sharon to help us with that. So next slide. And we're about community, the community in Miami. We have received a lot of the feedback that, at least for the design portion, this is probably the only event that is available now. But hopefully that changes in the future. But we're trying to make this for that purpose, to be a community, for you to meet other people. Some people work remote, so they have exposure to other people. So this is a good space for that if you want to meet up, or if you're new in the city as well. That has happened, that we have received people from outside and wanting just to meet new people. So welcome everyone. There's a Slack channel that has been the oldest in South Florida about UX design. Feel free to join there. Product People Meet, that's a meetup that is paid, but they have cool events. I think, Jonathan, you have gone to those. And the lab, that's another partner that we have that's in Wynwood. Sometimes we have events there.
I would love to invite Professor Sanet. Please give her a round of applause. Thank you.
Right. Thank you so much for being here. And usually we invite our students, but semester has ended, so they're not here. A couple of my current students are here, my previous students are here, but not a whole lot. So I'm very happy to see that this room is filled with professionals in the fields. My name is Sanna Martens. I'm a professor of practice in School of Communications. My background is in architecture and UX design. And before I joined UM 5 years ago, I was working in Razorfish. And before that, I was at Motorola Solutions Implantation. So I'm happy to meet you all and enjoy the event of the night.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's a beautiful space. We definitely grateful for that. And like Beto mentioned, config. Is everyone aware what config is? No. All right. For those who don't know, Figma, which is the company that sponsors these types of events for us and empowers us to throw these events, they do an annual conference in San Francisco. Last year it was in San Francisco and London. This year it's just only in San Francisco, and it's coming up on June 23rd and 25th. That's where basically they launch all the new features, the new everything within the Figma platform. So this year we're doing a watch party. So what is a watch party? Well, we're just gonna meet up, have food, drinks, network a little bit, and we're gonna watch a brief video from the CEO of Figma, which basically is who's gonna announce some of the new features. So if you're around, I know it's summer, people travel, but if you're around, we're gonna be meeting at the lab in Wynwood. It's gonna be fun, networking, very chill, and yeah, we're gonna have giveaways. We're gonna have some swag as well. So please, if you're around, feel free to sign up.
So I'm really happy today because I have fellow Amazonians for this event. Stephen and Jonathan, they work for AWS. They are both developer advocates, right? So basically, their role within AWS is about educating, right? Sharing with you how the tools work and doing actually these type of events, workshops. So they teach you, and you are free to ask them how the thing works. So that's basically their purpose in life right now. So, but yeah, I'm really happy to see that Jonathan came from South Carolina. It is North Carolina. So just for today. Wow. So yeah, he just came and he leaves tomorrow. So be nice to him. He came all the way because of you guys. Stephen, he works in the same building as I do in Amazon. This is no secret, but Amazon has an office in Wynwood, so we're located there. So with having said that, yeah, Stephen, welcome. Round of applause.
Oh, it's a little weird having my face there while also talking. But okay, I'm going to do a quick intro, and then I want Jonathan to do a quick intro. So I'm Stephen Siegert. I'm based in Miami, originally from Pennsylvania. As mentioned, we're both developer advocates. Really, we just want to empower you to use Kiro in this workshop. I'm not a designer by trade. I'm more of an engineer by trade. But what I think is amazing, especially with what's going on with AI, is there's all the boundaries are crossed, right? So throughout the workshop, we're actually going to look at software from two different angles. We're going to look at it as kind of engineers do, but create artifacts that then can be shared with other teams like product teams, other design teams, and really kind of like connect the dots for you of building something and then also designing something and kind of sharing that in between. So if you have any questions throughout, if you've used other tools, I'm sure everyone has, or like interacted with kind of like AI and agents, there can be a lot of downtime where we're kind of just like waiting around. That's where we're going to have conversation. If you have questions, we can pop around and help, but don't feel like you can't ask anything as you're going through. I know we're a little bit like compressed on time because there is a lot, but it's also meant to choose your own adventure. All the materials you'll be able to use and access afterwards. So we want you to have fun, and yeah, nice to meet everyone. And Jonathan.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, everybody, for being here. My name is Jonathan Vogel. I'm a developer advocate at AWS based in Raleigh, North Carolina. And I'm really passionate about software development. My background's in computer science. And I'm not a designer, but I'm here to help you in any way you could possibly imagine. I love to get your feedback back to the service team as well to improve the user experience. So looking forward to the conversations and excited to partner today. Over to you, Stephen.
This is a lot of fun, by the way, passing this back and forth. Okay, so we're going to look at Kiro today. Hopefully, you don't have to raise your hand, but everyone signed up and just has access, right? We just want to make sure that you're like ready to go as we jump into this. If you're not, just let us know. We'll pop around and help. A lot of times, AI and engineering, it's kind of considered as like builders, right? You can like build more, you can build more. I like to position these types of events as creation. So we're going to look at specs, which is a way to ask the Kiro agent to create something, and it's actually going to then go through generate requirements, design, and then tasks that you can step through, right? So it's not just vibe coding, it's a little bit more structure around there. But I think with that approach, you can just start creating things, right? So I like to think of this as like kind of think outside the box of what you would normally do or what the normal rules are. And as we look at Kiro, there's other ways to integrate both, with Figma and other design services. But then also, if you just wanted to take your creation and deploy it somewhere, if you wanted to make a website and make it live, right? I always say like local host to live, you'll be able to do that. So keep that in the back of your mind. This is not about building. This is not about a workshop. This is about creation. So like if you have questions, you want to think outside the box, definitely let us know, and we'll try and work with you on that. Okay, so the agenda intros we covered. We're going to jump into the Kiro workshop. The URL is here. You should all have that on your little sheet, which was, I mean, the last time I've used one of those like paper cutters to like cut 4 square, it's been a while. So I hope you appreciate that. And then the credits, right? So if you sign up as a free user, just generally you should have 50 credits, and then the extra 500 that you can use beyond this workshop as well, to just mess around. And at the end of the day, if you're familiar with some of these models like Claude, there's some open source ones in there too. You can just prompt, right? Maybe you're like, hey, I don't want to use Kiro, but I just want to like use the model and prompt afterwards. Those credits are yours. So kind of have at it. We're going to be working within the IDE. So it's a development environment where typically engineers are coding. Kiro also has a CLI if you want to get a little bit spicy. So that's like the command line, and you can do all these same things on the command line, which I really do like the CLI. And then also there is a web version that was just released last week, which is if you're working in GitHub, you can actually tag Kiro. So maybe you're working with a product manager and they have an idea for requirements. You can then tag Kiro and say, hey, generate a design, and it will do that and open a PR, and then it's there. Awesome. And we're going to talk about the Figma Power. That's where it all comes in, and we'll get into that. Figma Power is, think of it as an integration into Figma from Kiro that you can let Kiro do things on your behalf. So create designs, pull in designs, work with design systems, all of that good stuff that you can do in Figma. You pretty much have that kind of like within this IDE interface, and then Q&A throughout. What we're going to do today. So everyone has this URL, right? Show of hands, everyone's able to access this? Okay, cool. The only thing that you need is Kiro to do this, and then Node.js if you want to run the site locally. What that site looks like that you'll be operating in and kind of making a tweak to is this. So this is just a generic survey app, software as a service app that I actually created with Kiro. I created a little video as well. Okay, so this video was created with Kiro as well. I just had it kind of use the assets that I already had and generate a video, and that's all in the repo that you'll kind of walk through. So what we're going to do today and throughout the workshop is you're going to get this site set up so you can just see it, and then you're going to use Kiro and use spec-driven design. So you're going to prompt Kiro to create a new feature. That feature is going to be a templates page that will be at /templates. That's just going to be a collection of templates that if folks, users were to go to the site, they could create their own survey using one of these predefined templates. It's more of a placeholder just to kind of get things started. But that's where Kiro is going to do some work. And then you'll connect with Figma, push those designs into Figma, tweak whatever you want to do to those designs in Figma. And then back in Kiro, you can pull those changes back in, right? So it will just kind of show that interaction. Throughout the workshop, I'm going to start walking through this on the screen. So I'm going to put the microphone down or try to position it so I'm actually left-handed, so this is going to be very much a challenge for me. But I'm going to walk through it, and then you can follow along as well. But also I want to encourage you to just go ahead and do it on your own. So there is some downtime. We're going to be jumping into the agents on the side panel here of Kiro. So if I open up the IDE, and you'll see this more, which is why I'm kind of skipping over a little bit, but in this area where you can prompt, and when we start prompting, it's going to do things, and there's going to be some time where we can kind of chat, or if you have questions in between. So with that, I'm going to get started. Any initial questions? Yes. For those folks on the internet. The question is, what type of session are we using? We're going to be using spec session. There are two different sessions when you open up this kind of chat panel. There's vibe and spec. Vibe is kind of free flow, right? You want to riff, brainstorm. You can chat with the agent. You can select a different model. Now, the model is different from the agent. The agent uses the model. So you should have some options down here that you can click and jump into. Vibe is probably what, if you've jumped into other tools and you've just started to ask questions. Spec, as we'll see, will generate artifacts, the design requirements and tasks around this feature, right? We want to create a spec for a feature or functionality. And it will actually then create markdown files with all this information, and you can iterate through and then start implementing. So it pretty much collapses the software kind of development lifecycle plus planning process plus product requirements into these 3 files. And that way you have that, and you can share it after, you can adjust it after, and you can create multiple specs for different features as you layer on to an application or project. Cool. Are we ready to get started, everyone? I don't know where there's like 4 cameras, so I'm looking everywhere. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to jump into this and let's get rolling here. So we've already taken a look at the app here, and I'm going to just drag this over a little bit. So as we move through this, and feel free to follow along. If you have any problems with this site, you can blame Kiro, because I built the site with Kiro. And you can also grab this, or we can talk about this afterwards as far as like setting this up. But there is a little kind of Easter egg. I'll give you this whenever you complete sections. So it's a good thing to complete sections and check them off. I'll leave it at that. So what you're going to learn today is you're going to learn about steering as you step through this. Steering is giving the agent, in this case Kiro, context, right? So each project that you create, you kind of want to give some roles, like what's your design system? What colors do you want to use? What don't you want the agent to do as you're prompting with it? So you'll generate steering docs. Then we'll jump into spec-driven development. That is creating the spec, the requirements, design, and feature or tasks. And then we're going to actually go through and implement those. And then once we have that kind of working prototype of the application for the templates directory, we're going to link up Figma and show what that looks like. And that's using something called Kiro Powers. And that's those integrations that Figma is one. But if you wanted to put this on Firebase, or you wanted to put a website on Netlify, you can use a power for that as well. And just within a session, you can actually design your site in Figma and then have Kiro deploy it to one of these other external services, right? You could have something live. So we'll take a look at that. So I'm going to start walking through this, and then just follow along if you're interested, and we will get going here. Okay, so I've already downloaded those artifacts, and I'm going to look at this in Kiro. So we're going to talk about Kiro for a little bit here, just so we get familiar with where things are as you start going through. So let me just expand this a bit. Pull this over. And is everyone able to see, or do we need it zoomed in a little bit? If it doesn't carry. So on the left-hand side of the IDE should be the directory structure. So this is kind of the app. You don't have to be super concerned with this because it's already kind of pre-baked. This is what we looked at. So if you're not a big coder, just know that what we're going to be dealing with primarily is this .kiro directory here. So let me just zoom in here. So we're going to be in .kiro. So as you create these different types of documents, like the steering docs that we'll get into, it's going to go into this dot directory here, and it's going to live alongside your application. So over here on the right-hand side is the prompt. So you can select different models here. You're going to have options. You can swap between Vibe and Spec, like I mentioned. But if I just say, like, let's create a spec, right? Like, you can do similar things. You get the ghost, going to pop up, and it's going to start kind of like asking, what would you want to create a spec around, right? So we're going to do that in a few moments. Also over here, you'll see on the left-hand side, next to the file directory, I've got the ghost here, Kiro. I'm going to click there. And this is also going to be a place where we can view some of the assets that we're creating. So the steering files and then the spec. It's a little collapsed here because I'm zoomed in. And then powers are down here. So powers are those integrations. You can see that I already have Kiro here, or I'm sorry, I already have Figma, but there's also all these other ones. And actually there's a link in the workshop materials and you can go and like dig around a bit of what's available, but we'll take a look at that part when we get there. Awesome. Cool. So I ran the app. It's running here. If you're familiar with Astro, this is an Astro website, and I just hit npm run dev. So I've got that running. I'm going to click on the URL, and we've got this app. But what we don't have, even though we don't have templates, and that's what we're going to create. So if you're following along, we just went through the local setup. The dependencies are installed, and then I npm run dev, and now the app is running at that URL. Okay. You do have to do this through the terminal. If you want, and you don't have a regular terminal in your machine that you use, if you click up here, sorry, on the top hand bar, it's kind of very zoomed out, on the menu bar, and you go new terminal here, I'm going to click that. That's going to open one in this directory already. It's going to pop up there. Nope, I closed it. New terminal. And you can do the same thing here, npm run dev, and it will also start it there. So it's an integrated terminal within Kiro if you want to use that, if you're not just using one on your own machine, or one that you usually do. There are actually other ways too. You could, if you wanted, don't do this right now, but you could prompt Kiro and just say, hey, like, start this server for me. And it would actually go and trying to figure out like how to start it. Okay. So I'm going to jump out of this. I'm going to close things and zoom back out a little bit just so we can see a little bit more. And I am going to expand in the Kiro section over here, just this window here, so we can take a look. And this is where we're going to be operating in, and some of the magic's going to happen. So we're now on to part 2. Oh, okay. So are folks through part 1? If you are, you got to check the box. I didn't see any like moments of joy, like aha moments, but I'm going to do that. You do it. Once I hear the laughs, I'll know that. Okay. So on to steering. We're going to start with generating some steering docs, and then when this is running, if you have any questions, let's jump into it, or that's a good time to ask. But steering is like context. So whenever you're working with agents within these IDEs, usually they want to know kind of like, you don't want to waste tokens, right? So you might want to say, hey, use this design system, or if you're using Node.js, like what version of Node.js do you want to use? Or maybe you're designing something in Spanish, right? Or, Turkish. And you could tell the agent in the steering files, this is an app that is localized in that language, and it will help guide, right? Just think of it as like, it's always that guiding context whenever you prompt. The agent then checks and says like, okay, what are the constraints that I'm working within? Well, in this case, we already have an application. It's written in Astro, and it kind of has, some technology there. We want to codify that, right? We want to create files that represent what the application is. So when other folks come onto this project, they can just get up and running. So we're going to generate steering docs. So I'm going to jump into Kiro here, and I'm in section 2. And this is some more information around the steering that you can dig into, around like kind of having one specific to your project, or if you want to have global ones. But let's kind of see something being created. So I'm going to come back here. I'm within the project, right? So I'm in here. I'm going to click on the little ghost on the left-hand side. And now I'm going to generate steering docs. And you'll see now that Kiro starts working over here. So it's thinking, generate steering roles. This is the downtime I'm talking about. So it's kind of like, you need to have like a good kind of like party trick during some of this. It's going to look through the application, and then it's going to start pretty much thinking about like, okay, what technology is being used here, right? That we can kind of codify. What is the product? So you'll see now, I'm going to jump back over. I'm on the left-hand side. We've got It's almost easier sometimes. Happening here. Now here, right? Now we have steering. We have product. We got tech. Creating structure. So it's just doing this on its own, right? It's inspected. It's like, give me the context of this project and write it down for me. So a couple things with Kiro is that it went through. You can see kind of like the credits used here and then the time it took. Just note that like credits aren't a one-to-one with like a question. It's not like you prompt a question, it costs 1 credit. Different models have different costs. There are open weight models, which means that they're open source. Those are included here. And those are kind of like less credits than some of the more popular frontier ones. But let's jump into the steering docs. Okay, let me zoom in and open this up. So this is a markdown file. So now this is something I can like share with a team member, but it explains what this app is. So Survey App is an online survey builder marketed towards teams who need high completion rates. Talks about the claims as the landing or the different pages that are there. And then I can jump into the structure. This is the whole directory structure. So now it's outlined. And also the tech. So without me saying anything, it went through. It's like, okay, you're using React, you're using TypeScript, Tailwind, you've got custom properties, right? And then also there's an integration for Tailwind with typography that then works with Astro. So like all this was collectively grabbed there. And then it talks about the marketing assets. So I said how the kind of little intro video was created with Kiro on the website. That's using a library called Remotion, but I actually had Kiro look at the site, take kind of like the design system, and then create, using snapshots, a video for the site. So it was able to figure all of that out for me, and then also tell me the commands to run the site as well. And there are different ways to like leverage steering. You can tell Kiro to always include the steering roles. Maybe you want to create a different feature and you want to say like, hey, ignore all this for like brand new features or functionality. You can have it ignored. So a lot of options there, but that will just set the foundation. So we've got 2 things. We've got an app, and now we have steering, which is the context of how to kind of work within the app, right? What constraints we want, what are the requirements? If you wanted to, like I said, you could say, hey, always, whenever you generate text on the site, always put it in Turkish, right? And then it will start to follow that as well. Now we're going to jump into spec-driven development. So actually, I'm curious. So let's make it a little bit interactive. Like for tools that folks use, does anyone want to share typically what they've used, like AI tools? Like what are you using? Cursor? Have you ever used Cursor? Figma agent? Things like that stuff. Okay. ChatGPT. We've used ChatGPT. Okay. So I'm just curious if anyone wants to share, like if you were to start a project or if you had a question, what would you do? How do you start? Like you open up ChatGPT. What do you do? It's not a trick question either. It's just like out of curiosity. What's the goal? Like if you want to create a design, right? Like, and you open up one of those tools or you do something like, how do you just start? Okay. So the example is homeowner with a garage. One side is for tools. The other side is for parking the car. Okay. So perfect. So really what that is like, if you think about like just general design or like development, right? You have actual behavior and then you have expected behavior. So if we think about like working with Kiro in this case, we can give it that reward function in a way, right? We can say, hey, this is what's happening. This is what we want to happen within this context. And then you achieve it, right? The goal is achieved by XYZ, right? When both things fit, when the floor plan that it provides back can, properly allocate enough space for car and tools, or it's efficient. So you can, if you think about it that way, it does 2 things, right? You've actually done a lot in one prompt, right? Instead of going back and forth. And then it gives you some constraints, right? It's not very open-ended. You kind of like know what you're going towards and like how to, we'll say like interrogate, right? The agent in this case or model, and then know how to have a successful completion. That's effectively what specs are, right? Is that we want to craft this kind of environment for Kiro or an agent. So when it starts working, we know how it's successful. or else it's just going to go off and do whatever, right? And it's probably going to tell us, you're right. You know, we're going to be like, did you do it? They're going to be like, yeah, it's great. Like, cool. Like, it looks the way you want it to. So we just have to put like all of that constraint around it. Now, there's other things too. If you're working with like application builders or there is interaction involved, then there's testing, right? So what happens when things are clicked? Is it the actual desired function? You can have Kiro or an agent actually know what that is so it can do it for you. Now, this is great because I'm not sure how many folks have done this, but like there's a lot of plugins and there's a concept called MCP, which we'll kind of touch on, but it is like this integration component. I'm actually a huge Chrome extension developer. Love Chrome extensions. They're notoriously hard to like debug though, right? Like, because once things are live, you really don't have a good way to like work with them. If you want to do cross-platform, right? Like, well, cross-browser, Chrome is great, but then Safari is like, doesn't even make sense. And then Internet Explorer, and then Firefox has its own kind of web store, right? So like all these things. You can use MCP and actual agents in this case to just open up the browser and take screenshots for you and then report back what it sees and do like end-to-end testing. So like in Kiro, as we step through this, we're not going to do it specifically, but I encourage everyone and challenge everyone after you have kind of a working prototype to just ask the agent, hey, like do user acceptance testing and take screenshots from this application and save them into a directory. And if there are any regressions from whatever, like let me know, right? Like that's kind of the rigor that you could put around it. So you'll save money because you're going to spend less in prompting, but then also you get to like something that is like, I would say a line in the sand, right? And then you can move forward with it and iterate on it. You don't feel like you're kind of just like, working endlessly towards something. Okay. So what we're going to build, we are going to use the spec session and we're going to copy this prompt in here. So this is a prompt along kind of the same rigor as what you explained, right? So let me just zoom in here. I used Opus 4.6 to just run through this. If you want to use something else, you just may get a little bit different results. I mean, it's non-deterministic in general, so there may, kind of results may vary. But I found that 4.6 for this right now is like pretty consistent. So I would say that or auto if you're in there. Auto is also good within Kiro. So I'm going to copy this, and this is just it's just really outlining what we talked about. Add the gallery page at the template's URL. What should there be? Include the filter, right? Like I want to have these templates, but I want to have like clickable filters. So kind of remove the ones that don't match, and then have a call to action button. Also, there's a modal involved. So whenever I click on the template, it's going to open up a modal with the details. So I'm going to copy this. You can do this little handy clicking right there, and then yes. No. That's okay. That's the right around line. So like role, which is Kiro itself is a development agent, right? So the role is there. The context is actually the steering that we just created, right? And then you're going to see that as we jump through this spec, we'll probably check off the other ones too, which is like we're going to put the constraints around it, and then we're actually it creates a dependency on the requirements. So like it will map out what it needs to do and say like, hey, this task is dependent on this task. This one's dependent on this, and lets you iterate through that. Okay. And formats also can be in this too. So format can be in your context and steering. That in design sense, right? Maybe you for your design system, with spacing, colors, brand and design guidelines, like you could have all that. For engineering, you could have language, maybe version, and general best practice conventions as well. Like you could put all of that in there. So I copied this. All right, if you are at this step, we got this prompt copied? Feeling good? Everyone read through the prompt? All right. I heavily influenced the prompt. I modified it because I wanted to see certain things. So, and it may, actually, it's kind of good if it doesn't work out at the end. I think that's also good. And what I mean by that is like if things are slightly off, because that's an opportunity then to correct it just by prompting, right? Then we jump into vibe and we're just like, hey, like this div isn't centered. Like make sure like margins auto on both sides and like the modal will slide into place type of thing. Okay, so I'm gonna copy this, and this is gonna take a little bit of time. So I am gonna get started here, and I'm gonna close this out, and I'm gonna jump back into, I'm gonna create a new session, and that is, I'm just gonna close these ones out. I've got some other stuff. Spec, and I'm gonna pop in that prompt. And you can see, include steering documents. So it's reading the prompt and saying like, I'm gonna reference the context that's already in this project. And, whoa, looks like this is a new feature. Is this a feature or a bug fix? This is a feature. If this were a bug fix or something was off, we could actually kind of do like a surgical kind of fix for it, right? We could create a spec to just fix something that isn't working, and we have a record of it. But I'm gonna go with build a feature. I'm gonna submit my answer here. And it's going to, we're gonna start with requirements here so we can generate those. So it's giving us the option. Do we want to start with requirements or do we want to start with the technical design? I'm going to start with requirements, but if you're feeling crazy on a Thursday evening, go ahead and do design. And then it's going to start thinking. So this is kind of boring if I just talk about what it's doing, like as it's doing it. So we're going to talk about kind of where things are going, right? So it's going to read the information and it's going to start creating the requirements. Now, within a spec, here, we're going to have 3 different files created. We're going to have requirements, design, and tasks. So it's starting with the requirements. At every phase, it's going to ask us to kind of validate the assumptions, right? So this isn't a set it and forget it. This is, hey, like, let's work together here, right? Like, I know the information. I want to validate actually what you're creating. And then if we want to tweak it, you can do that and then kind of progress forward. So it's going to, you'll see up on the top left hand under specs, survey templates gallery. I'm just going to click on that to expand, click on requirements, user stories. So has anyone seen user stories before in engineering or design? Or, okay, it should be, take a step back. Oh, darn it. Like if you start seeing shall in all uppercase, like, you know, it should invoke something. But okay, so we've got acceptance criteria here for the requirement. So if I zoom in here, I'm just going to look at, oh, this does not look good zoomed in. I've got my requirement number 1, templates gallery, page route. Okay, and then I've got the acceptance criteria. When a user navigates to the templates URL, the templates page will show, right? So it starts to like kind of craft that story around these things that you put in there. The card display. And if you clicked it, who clicked on this? Are you seeing similar results? Everyone look at the person next to you, your screen, their screen. Are people lying to me? As everyone did. I'm joking. Okay, it's fine if you're not. But you should start seeing requirements. And actually, you have all this. So if you want to do this prompt, or if you want to put in a different prompt and generate a spec, that's also fine. But we get into more acceptance criteria, and it kind of goes on. Now, this is kind of small in a way, right? Like I just want like kind of one page with some stuff. This isn't a brand new app. If you have a brand new app, this might be a lot bigger. But if I wanted to, I could come in here into this prompt down below, and I could start changing stuff. There's, you know, different utilities. So if I hit like the pound sign here, I can bring in different files as additional context. If I want, I could attach images. Who uses, like, have you gone into ChatGPT and you just like take a screenshot and you're just like, do this for me, right? Like create this thing for me. You can do that in Kiro too. So like if I wanted to, I'm just gonna like rapid fire here. I'm gonna take a screenshot. I'm just gonna like pop that in, right? Like I could do that. I could go back, take a screenshot of the app and say like, I want this. Like I saw this on the Figma website. I like on their galleries page. Like I like this color scheme. Mimic it, right? So you can adjust your requirements that way. And now that we have requirements, it's saying, okay, you could generate a tech design. So right here. If I wanted to, I could analyze the requirements also. Maybe they don't look right, but right now I'm going to jump into tech design. So what does that mean? I mentioned that we've got requirements. That's the first file. This is just a markdown file. Is everyone have folks seen markdown files before? It's a text file, general kind of purpose text file. So it can be transferred around. You can put it in GitHub, you can do other things, you can render it different ways. But it's going to create now the design file. So underneath requirements, we'll see design in a few moments here. This one might take a little bit longer, but it will kind of pop stuff out. While we're waiting, any questions? Started it? Yep. Okay. No. It's definitely workflow. Like sometimes, so we started off in Spec and it was asked like, are you going to use Vibe or Spec, right? I think, and personally what I do is like, if you sit down to brainstorm, typically, like you're vibing, right? You just have an idea, you copy a picture in, like you just get started. It's just, once you have that concrete idea, then you can take that and then start like formalizing it with a spec. Now that initial idea might be a design, right? And you just start with design and then formulate kind of what the requirements from that. And also, it's not set in stone. So once you generate the requirements, you can adjust them, you can analyze them, you don't have to do anything in that moment if you don't want to. You could hand them off to someone else and say, hey, Jonathan created these requirements. They look good. Jonathan says, yeah. And you're like, okay, let's start, right? Let's create a design or hand it off. So let's see. If I click on design here, so I'm clicking on design up in the spec session. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to go back to the file tree here. I'm going to click on the Explorer. And you'll see that in this .kiro directory here, I've got the spec, I've got the design, and I got the requirements, right? So these are just files. This is just generating files at this point. I'm going to click on design. Actually, I'm going to scroll up because there's already some stuff there. And you'll see that now we get a little bit more, right? There's going to be some architectural design decisions. It's talking about more technical kind of like React concepts with islands, right? If there's a grid, a modal, and a filter, and then also kind of what do we want to do in terms of structuring this out in a component style, which is for Astro, kind of like a React component. So I'm going to go back to Kiro here, this little ghost, just so we can see it here. I'm going to click on design, same file. You'll also notice if across the top, if we look across the top up here, zoom in a little bit, survey, templates gallery, that's our spec, and that would change depending on what we're doing. But then I also have requirements here, right? This like kind of swim lane, design, and you'll see that the last one is task list, which we'll get to next. And it looks like, okay, Kiro's letting me know design document was ready, and it kind of gives these high-level assumptions, or high-level summary. Any questions on this? Any ideas? I'm going to float something in a second here, okay? It might feel a little bit weird, but okay, maybe it's not weird. You can do this with non-technical things, right? I've actually seen a lot of success with folks that are just like product managers that don't touch like the tech aspect, right? They just need to design and like communicate designs, communicate vision. You could write documents this way. It's just a plan. This is honestly a planning exercise that we're going through. But once again, we're creating those boundaries in the context that then the agent almost recycles, right? Every time it does something, it takes this into account and just helps guide it along. So these are like guardrails in a way, specific to what we wanted to build. Right? Now, we're done with that, and we're going to jump into the task list, but I'm going to come back here, just make sure that we're covering everything. Requirements. Okay, design, tasks. Okay. All right, we're feeling good. Everyone just had some pizza, you know, we're generating stuff. We're like doing things, but like sitting and watching at the same time. It's weird and exciting. Okay, so sorry for I actually don't use dark mode except for IDEs. So it's like, but I see the light flash each time. Okay, so now we're in the design, and I'm going to generate the task list. And this is gonna take both the requirements and the design and start making like executable tasks that then can be used to generate what we want. So 3 phases here. So honestly, if you think about it in terms of like if you're at work or if you're part of a group, right? Someone's got an idea, they're like, schedule a meeting. Cool. What are the requirements for this? It's like, all right, let's schedule another meeting next week. What's the design? Schedule last meeting. Who's doing what? Right? Task list. We just did all that in like 5 minutes, right? So we're going to generate the tasks. This is going to be the who does what of this spec. And at the end of it, we're going to have these artifacts once again to inform us in the future for maintenance or for changes or for the person that comes after us why things were done the way they were done, right? Instead of being in like Word docs and other things, which is fine, but given like kind of this context, we have all that information kind of sitting right alongside the code here. It can live somewhere else if we want to, but it's informed by the project. Okay, this is actually kind of ripping and roaring here. So we've got implementation. The spec is ready for implementation. This is great. All right, I'm going to click on tasks. I'm over on the left-hand side again. I'm just going to click on that new file. And now we've got this kind of interesting looking markdown file. So it is markdown, but I'm going to close this just to make it bigger. Let's see. And look at this. Okay. So if I hover this, I've got a task. So set up data layer, and I can actually start the task here. So if I click start, this is then going to tell Kiro, the agent that just generated all this, like, okay, start building it, right? If I wanted to, I could click run all tasks, and it will just start going through and implementing these. One interesting thing, one of many interesting things, is this requirements here. So I'm going to highlight that. So there's actually dependencies. So when this task list was created, Kiro said, hey, for step 1 to be completed, or 1.1, like eventually we're going to need 2.7, right? Or it's going to depend on these other things, these other items of the task. Oh, also, by the way, some of these tasks may be optional. So like you don't have to do them, but if you really want to do it, like you can. Maybe this is a POC, you just want to get things started. And you can see some of that. So I'm going to scroll to the bottom, and you'll see that there's these waves. Now what these waves mean is that each wave are independent tracks of work, and Kiro will actually create multiple Kiros and say, hey, get this job done faster, and you can do all of these things because they're mutually exclusive, right? They're not really like hard dependencies on each other. They can just operate. So I'm going to iterate through this kind of one by one, but if you're at this point, I think honestly, you should just have fun with it. Click start task, see what happens, dig around a little bit. I'm just going to start doing it up here, so you'll see what it looks like eventually, but you can hover over. Now, I'll pause there. Any questions on this part, or kind of where we're at?
Hey, Steven, can you repeat the question?
Is it too reckless to run all tasks? It depends on how many drinks you've had. No, it depends, right? Folks work with agents and AI in different ways, right? I think, if this is something that you just, you're kind of having fun with, and it is a POC or just like a general project, like go ahead. But, if you're working within a team, I still encourage, obviously, folks to look at code and to review, whether it's code or text or documents, whatever it's outputting. And it can get pretty, like, this is a very small spec. Like these specs can be pretty huge, right? And I think it's easy for us to lose kind of the mental mapping of what's happening if we do that. Now, granted, I created, and I can share afterwards, I created a couple weeks ago a desktop Tamagotchi, right? A desktop app, Tamagotchi, and there's also a terminal Tamagotchi, and then it had like an agent can control it. And now at work, actually here, now at work, I kind of like have this Tamagotchi that like I need to feed and clean up after. I created all this in Kiro. And I just had this idea, and I was like, run all tasks, right? And I just kind of rapid fired through it. So in that case, yes, like you could do it, but I would say for the first time, or kind of like as you're getting used to it, definitely kind of take it piece by piece. Now you'll also notice that I'm getting prompted here, right? Invoking spec task execution. Kiro's doing something. It wants to run a command. It's actually trying to build the website behind the scenes to see if like it's validating. It wants to validate it, but it's asking me to allow it to. So depending on what you're doing in these kind of tools, you're going to get prompted a lot because ideally it doesn't have endless permission to your environment. You want it scoped. We consider this like a sandbox. Like you only want to give the agent what it needs, right? So I'm going to allow this. There are a few options here. I can kind of like run it once, or I could just say, like in general, I'm okay with this command, right? Like in the future, go ahead and do it. I don't want to be prompted, but I'm just going to run it, and then it will continue on. Now that's a good way so that you don't have you're doing like different systems or like, hey, create this file on the disk or move a CSV around or do something like that. It doesn't accidentally like run a command it shouldn't run and then delete something, right? So it's a good failsafe. Right? So all clean, the file compiles without any issues. Now, if you're familiar with Git, good. If not, that's also okay. But I'm just going to show you kind of like what has been changed. So only task 1, the parent. So we jump through task 1 and 1.1. Yeah, so there's only kind of one subtask was completed. I'm going to click over here on the right where it hovers, source control. This is just going to show me the changes from the original version. So like the original app that was there that I showed you, then I ran one task, and it's going to show me what was actually created. And we've got the steering files here. Let me just kind of minimize this down. But you'll also see that if I click on this, it created this file. So this was for the task, right? Create the template of data types. So it's creating some code here, which are the data types for these templates and kind of some of the data. So this is what the templates will be. I'll expand this. And we kind of have this information. There's going to be one template that's Net Promoter Score. There's going to be another one that is customer satisfaction. So it went through and did that. So I'm feeling confident. I'm going to go back to my tasks. I'm going to click on this little bubble up here. And that's going to open back up my window here. And I'm going to move down, hover over, and click Start Task, and this is going to start building. Any questions while this is going? I know we spent some time here. We're getting to the top of the hour for Q&A, so just want to make sure. Is there a YOLO command? Dangerously accept all. Yeah. So this is by default on autopilot. So if I kind of come down here to the bottom right-hand corner, there's autopilot. It's toggled on. That just means kind of start doing stuff. It's unless you've already allowed some of these commands to run, like the trust commands, then it should still prompt you. But there are ways to just say, in general, programmatically, what commands are allowed that it doesn't need to. Yeah. And then once you start allowing things also, then it will kind of just carry on. All right. So it's verifying, checking diagnostics. If there were tests here, if we wanted acceptance tests, it would actually do acceptance testing as well. And you can say it starts to kind of scroll or think there. And while this is happening, because I know we're kind of running close on time, so what I would do is I encourage everyone to continue with this, right? Step through or create your own spec. But in the last few minutes, I want to show something else just to make sure that we obviously touch on Figma, but I think that it's exciting. You just kind of have to build up to it, which is why we got to create a spec. But I'm going to come to the Kiro site here. And I'm just going to click on powers. This is just the Kiro.dev website. And scroll down a bit. And I mentioned, and what we're going to look at is the Figma power. So design to code with Figma. So you can add this to Kiro. You can also do it within the IDE, and I already have it, and we'll take a look at that. But whenever you add this to Kiro, what it does is it hooks up that integration for you. So as you're generating these requirements, or you just want to vibe now with the output that you've created, you can lean on what you have in Figma, or you can instruct Kiro to go and do certain things, and we'll see what you can do. But then also gives you some of those best practices, right? Everything we're adding to the agent in kind of a file-based system usually ends up as context. So you get some of the best practices. In this case, Figma created this. So we partner with Figma. They created this to give us some best practices on actually how to use their integration. So now the best, and you may have heard this, but who here has seen the Matrix? The first Matrix? Good, first Matrix? Okay. Like when he has to learn Kung Fu, right? And they're just like, load it up. And that's effectively what powers are, right? And you can offload them too. So Kiro knows when to use them and then when to not use them. And why that's important is within kind of using agents in context, if you fill the context up too much, things get a little bit dicey, right? The agent might not really know what's going on and might get confused with like earlier context. So these powers, they're loaded on demand. So they're more dynamic. If you're working in a certain design file, the agent may say, hey, this is kind of a design file, right? This is maybe CSS or this is Tailwind. I need to map this to React. And then it's like, okay, load in the power. So that's some context there. I've already added the power, but I'm going to show you where it's at. Over on the left-hand side, far over, there's another ghost with a lightning bolt because lightning bolts are power. And you can see that I have designed to code with Figma here. I'm going to click on this. I can try the power. Now, I'm going to cancel this. And I'm going to just create a new session here. And I'm going to uninstall it and then install it. So you'll see that this is going to add the MCP for Figma, which gives me that integration. So I'm going to do that. And now we can see here, I've already connected. So whenever you first do it, it's going to say, you want to authenticate, and then it will authenticate to your workspace. It's in the instructions. But whenever I'm connected, let me just pull this over. And in the bottom left-hand corner, I can zoom up a little bit. There's a screenshot. Actually, I got a screenshot right here. So what does this power give me? It gives me tools. And tools are things that the agent, Kiro in this case, can do. So it says, hey, Figma power, you can get screenshots, you can get design context, you can get metadata of things in Figma, of my Figma account. You can get a Fig Jam, you can create a Fig Jam also. And then also you can get, I think it's cut off there, the code connect suggestions if you want to do that as well. So you pretty much empower, you're giving like the matrix knowledge, right, to your agent of all things Kiro, or of all things Figma. And then if you add additional powers, those can kind of play into as well. So maybe you create that website, you bring in the Netlify one or Firebase or whatever. Now kind of all these things can work together, and the agent can leverage them to then produce output. Okay. So in the workshop, in the materials, it goes further down. So after you have the templates page working, it creates a screenshot and then pushes it into Figma, and then you can adjust it and have it brought back in. But what I think is pretty cool here, and I'm going to jump back over, I'm going to try the power here. It says try, so I click that, and now you'll see get you set up with Figma. First, I'll activate to see what it offers. Here's what it offers. It's going to read the power steering. So the power itself has steering files. We created our own steering files. The power has steering files. And then it's going to run who am I. And you can see that it went off and grabbed information from my Figma account. Let's see, I'm just going to scroll back up here. and it can show info about kind of what project I'm in. So I'm in the marketing site workshop, then also who I am, and if I wanted to change that, and then it gives me information about that. So if I wanted to, let me actually just come back here. Oops. And I'm going to copy this, and we'll read what it is in a second here. So this says, use generate Figma design to capture our homepage at localhost 4321 and push it to a Figma design file. And just to confirm, I've got a homepage running at 4321. I'm going to do that. So it's trying to run the server. I'm just saying it's already running. And now once again, it's asking me, hey, do I trust this activity? What does it want to do? I'm going to say accept it to generate the Figma design. So once again, kind of least privilege. Now it's actually injecting a script into the website so that it can then capture. And I'm going to do accept command. Let's see up there, real small, it says sending to Figma. Sent to Figma. And I have to log back in. I don't have it here, but I will pull it up in a second afterwards. But you can see here as I go through what it did, right? So it opened up that website, actually appended this kind of Figma capture with an ID, and then did it and then sent it off. And let's see, it gives me the information right here, the capture ID. Cool. Now it's going to go back and actually remove that tag from the website and give me the new Figma file. This is actually, I'm not sure if this is from yesterday or today, but it's either way, it should be the same, which is it went through and not only did it do the initial kind of like the viewport, but then it scrolled through the entire page of that. And I could dig into this too. So these are like elements over here. So I could jump into it if I wanted to. I can make changes. Now, if you follow through with the rest of the spec, you'll see that this is actually what the templates page looks like with the modal. And the last part of the workshop is actually jumping in here, changing things in this screen, and then going back to Kiro and saying, hey, like I changed the design in Figma for the design modal, bring it back in and just implement it. And it will go grab the changes. So you'll see in the workshop, the color is actually different. I changed the color of the button, brought it back into Kiro, and then it automatically just rebuilt and published it locally. So I had a working prototype. So different ways to do it, but you can imagine at a larger scale, or if you're working with a team, right? Maybe you have like your own project that you're working on. And you're like, hey, Jonathan, every Jonathan, go in and like make your edits or collab on this. Like you have that. Or how about this one, right? Maybe you have kind of a project board or you have some brainstorming in FigJam and you're like, you know what? We want to create a prototype. Hey, Kiro, go get that FigJam information, bring it in. What's the main point of it? Summarize it, and then start creating specs from what we were kind of brainstorming in FigJam, right? So you actually go from brainstorm to prototype without having to copy and paste things around, right? You have that direct integration right there. And then once you've created the prototype, put it right back to wherever, right? You could put the designs back in Figma, or you could deploy the thing live locally if you wanted to, or test it locally, but deploy it somewhere else and share it. So a lot of options there. So think of it as like a bridge connector for Figma and this power. But then also on top of that, you have all of that other context. So like I didn't type anything. Now that could be considered bad for some people, but just think about that, right? This project has all this context, technology, requirements, design, what the tasks are. I just kind of instructed it, right? But now next time someone else goes in there, or if I were to come back to this in like a week or a month, like, and just prompt it right away, I want to add a new like piece of functionality or feature, it's just going to rip through all of that context. So we're not starting from scratch and be able to pick up where it left off. Any questions? Yeah. Typically, I see the design systems as the bridge for the most part. So there's already either an internal mapping, or you could have Kiro create the mapping, and you could create a spec, or you could create a design system using the spec, right? And you can say like, hey, go get all these tokens from Figma. This is what we use kind of internally. Actually create a spec that then becomes our context, and then share that across the board. So you almost have this like hybrid design system, right? That works with agents, an agent design system. So I've seen that. When it goes off and actually grabs it from Figma, I'm pretty sure it grabs like all of that from the design context. So one of the tools in there is design context. So it already does some of that internal mapping, because Figma heavily, whenever they generate code, typically it is React anyway. So if you're working in a React project, that mapping is a little bit easier. But the CSS and everything else shouldn't be a problem. Actually, if you're using that, or like, Tailwind or things, CSS in general, like that's actually better, right, than something that's like more exotic or like homegrown, because at least it's standard. Or if folks like used on the design side, are you familiar with like APIs? Have you heard of APIs? Kind of just general like kind of request response. So like historically, or kind of like up to whatever, a year ago, an API is like us interacting, a person or like a website or like a service interacting with something else on the cloud usually, and it returns information. So request response. Think of MCP as APIs for agents. So agents now have this protocol that they kind of have a contract where they can retrieve this information, but a lot of times it's acting on your behalf, right? It's like it's working with resources or artifacts and then like pushing back and forth. Some of them have read and write, or you can limit that. So for instance, with that Tamagotchi, I created an MCP, so I can have Kiro feed the Tamagotchi for me, or clean up it, right? Like it's like that. It's so this agent can act on my behalf. So yeah, what we've seen, especially at Amazon internally in larger organizations, is all of these, we'll say like these, a lot of times like center of excellence, kind of like overlay teams, or like someone that had this information, this data, where they had like a system or a service. Now they're exposing that through MCP. So then instead of like reaching out, going to all these meetings, you just connect to the MCP and you can get all those artifacts. And then as they make updates, you can have the agent kind of pull that in automatically. Another way to distribute things, but primarily used for agents. And then with the, say with some of the rigor and of permissions around that. So usually kind of least privilege, or you want it to be least privilege. Any questions? All right. Appreciate everyone's time. Okay, 2 things. You got the credits, right? You can follow along with the workshop, finish that, or you can go off and create something. I definitely encourage you to. I always say this, that like, and Jonathan and I are here to represent, Kiro and AWS, but we're not here to sell anything, right? So like, you don't have to use Kiro. If you don't want to use Kiro, I just want to know why you wouldn't use it, right? But I encourage everyone to use whatever makes them the most productive, right? And hopefully that could be Kiro, but if not, we want that feedback, right? Like what would win you over there? And then definitely, if you're kind of feeling, it's, tomorrow's Friday, I want to try CLI, try the Kiro CLI, try Kiro Web. Could be pretty fun. The CLI is nice if you're familiar with like a Claude Code, right? That's like kind of what it is and how you would interact, but you get that same functionality. And if you create these assets in the IDE, you can reuse them from the CLI. So with that, hope everyone enjoyed that. The workshop is going to be there. The GitHub repo is going to be there. So feel free to follow up afterwards. And then there are some additional resources at the bottom of the workshop, just a Kiro overview. And then also I have a video about using agent skills, which is kind of another way to add context to Kiro as well. So thank you.
Any questions? Really, take advantage that these 2 guys are here today and they can answer anything for you.
When you riff on Kiro and bring that back into Figma, are all the design system tokens still attached? Because I've noticed like in some other tools, when I do that, I bring it back into Figma, it's all in code. But when I bring it back into a Figma design, everything's completely detached. That's what I've noticed.
It depends. So if the design system is well structured, and probably Jonathan is a beast on design systems, because I know that Figma has the Code Connect, right? So
Okay, yeah.
so if Code Connect is well done, it should read the actual
So
tokens.
if you're not using code,
If not, because I have used it. So when I'm doing that, and that's why I was telling Jonathan, I use the NCP. Because sometimes the Code Connect actually it tells me Coconut is not fully like integrated, la la la.
yeah.
So it pulls whatever it can from the design, but if I see that there's some discrepancies, so I say, okay, pull everything from the MCP, from the design system of the MCP, and then it pulls the actual tokens, the actual colors, and the actual things. So, you have anything to add on Code Connect?
Yeah. So I work on a design systems team. We are still debating if MCP is the route that we should go, given that it uses a lot of tokens. So there's some other I guess factors that go into that. But right now, it has become industry standard for enterprise teams to create their own MCPs, right? So basically, regardless of the tool, of the AI tool, if it's you're using Claude, you're using B0, you're using Figma Make, whatever, just connect the MCP and then you get all that context from the system. So we're still in the works, but yeah, I mean that's probably the best route.
Just to add to that, because you brought up a interesting point around like MCPs with a lot of context. Like you saw all the tools that we brought in with that, and if you then have a bunch of MCPs, I think what's really interesting is using MCP as a bridge to something else, right? So you could connect to an MCP, and then the MCP could just almost give a command, right? Like, hey, where's this stuff at in GitHub? And then return back that to the agent. So instead of a whole design system, it just returns back where the assets are, and then the agent knows how to access those, right? So instead of this whole context of everything, it becomes two lines. And that's actually what a lot of folks are doing too, is just like you almost have like a proxy effectively, which just routes the MCP to make different requests to then get stuff, or like a skill for skills.
I just want to say thank you once again. This is awesome. Does anyone have any questions? I know, of course, we have different levels, right, of knowledge here, right? So, some of us maybe it's the first time that you're opening the terminal, right? That's okay. Like we want to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to learn and to feel comfortable and to go home and and tinker. But any for non-technical folks, right? Any tips that you may have? Somebody who's like first time seeing this, first time opening a terminal. Any resources that you may recommend or anything like that? For somebody who's just starting vibe coding.
Yeah. Man, I use a lot of tools. And I would say, like I mentioned, like the Chrome extensions, right? I think personally, like one of the easiest things to get started and to see and to have like an aha moment is to take pictures. I mean, I'm very visual. I think hopefully, well, maybe not hopefully, but if you're in design, you're probably also partially, pretty visible. Yeah. So like taking a picture of something you like to replicate, right? Like even in engineering, typically that's how folks get started, is like to build something. You pick a site, you want to rebuild it, you pick a service, rebuild it. Like take it a design, just capture that screenshot and then put it wherever you want, whether it's ChatGPT or something else, and just like start asking questions about how to recreate that or how to build on top of it. I think is a good thing, and like what recommendations are. Now, I wouldn't say like take everything, as the gospel there, but it just gives you some starting points to kind of mess around with. For things like Kiro with the IDE, definitely like it's a lot, right? Even these terms are very confusing. It's like now what once was just skill means all these different things. MCP means agents and LLMs, all of that. I would just say like if you can start kind of like a project or something, then that will help and just kind of like iterate on it. Don't worry about all the details. Mainly just I would say like the folks that got the most frustrated are ones that haven't had like little successes. So whatever you can do to get to that success, and usually it's the recreation of something that you already like with the images. I like creating like SVGs. I don't know, like animated SVGs, because I'm not good at creating them. So like I like to have those for like different things, or like if you're familiar with like Lottie animations and like iOS apps and stuff. I've been building like an iOS app, and like, yeah, I want like cool Lottie animation. So like that's been a great learning experience for me because it's net new, still using kind of technology, but also like it's creating something that I haven't been able to create in the past, and I'm learning from it.
I think my journey with biocoding started December last year. So I jumped into Kiro, all these tools. The best way to learn is for you to actually try something, right? In Amazon, we have the leadership principle of learn and be curious. So it's just that, like, put yourself a goal. If you don't know what to do, think of, okay, I want to create my portfolio, going back to the basics. If I want to recreate my portfolio, how can these tools help me out doing that? And the way that I'm visualizing to do it, right? So that can be a good goal. Or you can practice recreating something that you like, let's say Instagram, or I don't know, like a page that you like to visualize. Like Steven said, you can put the screenshot of the screen and say to tell to the agent, hey, I want to recreate this, help me out. And then it will start guiding you. If you're getting stuck, ask the questions to the agent and asking, hey, I'm getting stuck. What can I do? How can you help me? And the agent will always try to help you out. Always, always, always. So it's just kind of like, try to do it yourself. Right? That's the best advice I can give.
Thanks. And one thing that helped me as well when we started this journey last year was um, telling the agent, like, look, I am a designer. I'm not technical. Explain to me what the heck you're doing, right? Because that's the best way to learn. A lot of times I just open up, like when the agent's thinking or whatever, just like, what the heck is it? Oh, interesting that it went there. So it's just like being very, and then of course the agent will talk differently, right? Like, oh, think of Figma, and it's like it'll explain to me in Figma terms, which is hilarious. And then eventually you get used to it, and like a portfolio is the perfect example, right? I was paying I don't know how much money on Webflow, and I was like, look, I want to create my portfolio, and I don't want to pay anymore. I want to host it in GitHub. How do I do it? Astro. Now I'm using Astro, and I'm using Vercel, and a whole bunch of stuff that I just, because I was in it, that I learned about this. So it's the best way is just like pick a project and jump in it, and don't feel like intimidated. We're all in this together. Oh, go ahead, Renzo.
It's actually interesting how I mean, if you want my full thought process. So someone shared something on Twitter, which was a stamp collector or a stamp maker. So it had the outline of a stamp, and like you would just put it over a piece of paper and it would clip stamp form. And I don't know, in my mind, I saw that form and I just thought the Tamagotchi window, and I was like, oh, like retro Tamagotchi. And I like the idea of like retro games. So in this case, I had to do something for work and I was kind of running behind. So I jumped into Kiro, and I honestly just started brainstorming. I created something that's called a plan, which is, it's like a lightweight spec. So the spec that we looked at today is very like in depth. Plan is like, I've got an idea and I just want a couple bullet points, summary, kind of like what lightweight requirements are. So I actually created a plan first and kind of like went back and forth, riffed. I was like, I want this to be the vibe. I want a desktop app. I've built desktop apps in the past. So like I had some technology. So I kind of just like, gave it that. And then the terminal UI, and then also I was like, here, I went and found some sprite images of Tamagotchis, right? I found like the docs on the life and lifespan of Tamagotchi, right? Like the rules, the game rules. And I was like, okay, like let's start building that in. From that, I then created a spec, and I went through that exact process that we went through with the template route to take the technology requirements for each of these different types of apps. So I created the steering, and then also I then had the design and requirements, and then the tasks. And for that, some of them I did kind of like push run all tasks, but I stepped through mainly like for the desktop app and everything, and I just like kind of watched it. It runs into issues, right? It's not kind of perfect or anything, and things can go different ways, but I help guide it. And actually, is an inspirational story, I guess, for that. that was a Saturday. Saturday during the day, I did that and then I finished it on Sunday, created all the marketing assets for it from the application, and then scheduled a launch on Product Hunt for Monday. So within like 24 hours, if you're familiar with Product Hunt, it's like a way to like launch different things. And then I hit number 7 or 3 along one of the Claude and Anthropic things too. Like within whatever 36 hours, like all of that. Now I'm not saying like, hey, this is like mission critical software, we're going to put Tamagotchis on airplanes, it's going to control them by any means, but it was fun and I was like invested in it because it brought me back that nostalgia. But I definitely guided it along, right? And I think something like that, if you can find something that like I always think of it like if folks are like into, I don't know, I mean like it's almost like we all have these ideas, right? And you almost kind of psych yourself out because you're almost like, if I start this, then I have to continue, and it's going to take all this time. And I've got 10 other projects. I just fire them, right? Now it's like I'm almost afraid because things happen too fast, and I have some successes, and then I want to continue, and I'll have too many projects to work on. But I encourage everyone, like if you have something on the back burner, like just throw it, like throw it out. And if you get to it that day, cool. If not, you can come back. But the beauty of it is you don't have to recreate all that context. You don't have to remember a lot of stuff because it's kind of baked in. You can kind of just pick up where you left off. And I think that is actually there, Tama 96. And yep. Mm-hmm. Let me see. I've got a lot of products here. Don't judge me. Here we go. Tama 96 is number 7 for the day. Yeah, I don't know if I can get the list, but yeah. So like these artifacts, like these pictures and stuff too. Like, I mean, these are kind of like the worst pictures, so don't judge me because I'm sure everyone in here can do much better. But what I've done in the past is like same thing with like developing that marketing video on the survey app website here, which is you've already done the hard work. You have the design system. You've already created a lot of these assets. You can just there's so much reuse, right? With like that you already can do. So like you can give these agents what you've already done and just say, hey, like create me like a cool product marketing stuff. Like give me nice, I want to put an app, or I'm working with someone that's putting an app on the app store. Like, and I want the marketing for that, like, and have it whip up a bunch of variations. One thing that I've done for the Chrome extensions, not to kind of plug them all, but in Chrome, for internationalization and localization for the web store, you have to have a different description. And then those also require for each language their own marketing materials. So I create a base marketing material, and then I actually have the agents go through and localize all of my marketing materials for me from my base kind of product images. So like oh my goodness, I mean like it's, and I'm only doing like the top ones, but like then for like Arabic, right? It's giving me like right to left, like automatically, and everything. And I can check with other folks and get it validated, but just like being able to do that as an individual and like being empowered, that's like, wild. So sorry, I didn't want to.
That's awesome. Any other questions? Last question. Yeah.
Hold on.
Okay.
I don't know if this is, yeah. I can share once for not recording, maybe. No, I mean, so the thing I love about Chrome extensions, actually, I think it's a good idea for projects, is that the whole kind of mantra behind Chrome extensions is that they should do one thing and one thing well. Now, a lot do way more than that, but it gives me a starting point and an end point. And that's why I feel like as someone that is working on side projects, like I feel a sense of accomplishment and I can learn something, right? And I always kind of, before agents, took the mental model or approach of, I don't know who told me this, but they're like, when you start a new project, right? Like start with like 80% of what you know, and then introduce like 20% new, right? Because if you start with like 100% new, usually you don't make it far, you get frustrated. It's so much to learn. So I usually take that approach with Chrome extensions. So the first one, I'm not going to give, I can talk after, but it's around reminders, but it really challenged me with time zone and dates and times, like a lot of like cross time zone and then cross season, and then also localization of times. So I wanted to do that, and then like notifications and being kind of like resilient and having failover when folks start and restart and upgrade their machines to not lose reminders. And then also provide like a cloud interface to like sync my reminders. So that was one. Another is for just general integration into a spreadsheet app, popular spreadsheet app, to just reducing a lot of copying and pasting. My
For marketing specifically, do you have one?
Sorry,
That was the original question.
I got carried away. See, he was right. For marketing, yes. So for marketing, one that I did a lot with was for text to speech, and that's where I actually did a lot of the localization and internationalization within the app and in the marketing materials, and then also for the website too. So that like it created product images from the extension. An actual didn't create videos, but I'm a big fan. I don't want to go too far over, but a really cool use of things is you can have the agent, for instance, once you create a website in HTML and CSS, you can have an agent go through and take a snapshot of all your pages and then stitch them together. So you create frames from just snapshots, have it stitched together and create a video. So I create a lot of videos just from still images, but I don't do it. So like I can like, I'll have it click through the app. Each time it clicks through, it takes a screenshot and then pulls it together. And then I layer on audio, like, kind of open source audio or non-licensed. And then you have product stuff right there. Sorry, that was in depth. I like Chrome extensions a lot. I've been doing it for a while, so it's a lot of fun.
Can I plug one thing to keep the convo going? We on his page, the S12D URL for the workshop, we have our LinkedIn contact info. You're welcome to connect with us on LinkedIn and reach out if you have any follow-up questions, if you have any feedback about your experience with Kiro. If you gave up on Kiro and switched to something else, tell us why. You mentioned that earlier. Yeah, we want to know. Yeah, we love feedback. So please feel free. I know we're wrapping up, so please feel free to keep the conversation going. We love it.
Yeah, it's good that because these guys are more on the developing side, so it's good that they have access to designers. So if you have feedback for Kiro, it's a good way for you to share, more on the mindset of designer, like how Kiro can be better than it is.
Great point.
So yeah.
Very, very good point.
All right. So with that, thank you again. Please give them a round of applause.